Hey everyone, you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture, and my name is Andrew Davis, and this is brought to you by my sponsors, Mix and Printing, the smarter way to print. I know printing your creative project can be confusing and stressful, but Mixam is here to make it easy. From their instant quote calculator that lets you get as many quotes as you want for free to their 24-hour customer service support, Mixam is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. And right now, you can choose from a range of premium printing options and materials. And the company has also printed so many successful Kickstarter campaigns, a bunch of them you have even heard about on this very show. And they currently offer services in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK. And Mixam can print and reach your audience anywhere in the world. So if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to Mixam.com. And right now, they are running a promotion where listeners on my show can drop my name, Andrew Davis, in a message tab of a current order to get a 5% discount on their first order. So that is mixam.com. Again, type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of your current order to receive a 5% discount on your first order. Also, I have an affiliate link for BCW supplies, bags, boards, long boxes, anything you need to protect your collectibles. Use code POPAnimeComics to get 10% off your entire order. And then you could also buy my t-shirt up at Redbubble. It is a Gundam t-shirt. Absolutely, you can go buy that. And tomorrow night, I should have these bad boys in, and they will be most likely up in my eBay store on Saturday, if not on Friday night itself. So you can go buy one to support this show. And I have a special medical card that is also coming out when sort of sequel to that. So that will also be up there as well. I am totally shilling myself. And without further ado, and I might get your name wrong, so forgive me, I have commentator Mike Tiener. So welcome back to the show.
It is great to be back with you, my friend.
Yeah, no, what is this? The third, fourth, fifth time now?
I think it's the fifth.
It might be the fifth. It might be the seventh. I lost track.
At this point, I'm on the payroll, So-
Yeah, right? Because this show clearly makes enough money. Clearly. With me,
I think the last time that we did a show together was, it might have been Dead End Moon. I don't know. I think because we had Scott and Alice on with me. I think if that was the last one, so it's been a little while.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I know that I think I did you with Black Jackets the first round, and then obviously you're back with Black Jackets 4 and 5, which is currently on Kickstarter. And before we go any further, you can get all the issues for those who are interested in hearing about this for the first time. You can get completely caught up. But what is the basic story of Black Jackets for those who are hearing about it for the first time?
So we're following a group of teenagers as they're maturing into the role of monster hunters. They were basically put in a tough situation where their parents disappeared, and their parents also belonged to this fraternal organization called the Black Jackets, and their parents went missing. So now they kind of set off on a journey to kind of find out what happened to their parents. Along the way, they're doing a lot of monster hunting and getting better at their craft, learning to work together as a team, building bonds as a family. All of that's happening. And then what the story really evolves from there and starts to become this giant conspiracy around the organization and its true intentions. And so there's just several layers and mysteries that are being unraveled with every issue. And it just continues to get, even crazier and crazier as we go through each issue. So 4 and 5 wrap up that first arc. Definitely leaves us at a very pivotal moment, a turning point in the series that will better define really what their journey is going to be long term. And so, I mean, in general, that's really the premise to the story. The vibe and the tone of it, I would compare to a lot of 90s Gothic films. Like, we watched The Crow, The Craft, and things of that nature really helped influence the story in its early stages. And then I started to find all these other elements and inspirations that I could draw from. Now it feels like it's its own unique thing. But at the core of it is really just these kids learning to grow together as professionals and as friends and family, and that's really the heart of the story.
Yeah, I kind of want to dive into a little bit of it without giving too much away. So one of the things that's super interesting is that, as you stated, they do come into a very rough situation where one day their parents are just not there, and they sort of have to take the mantle and do what their parents were doing, which is deal with the monsters. And this group of people, which is Evan, Lynn, Jack, Ellie, and Asa,
Okay,
are
so
all, sort of training already for it, and they're already starting to bond. But it starts off very much in issues one and even issues two to some degree of them coping and dealing with the fact that their parents aren't around. They haven't been around for a while. They're still mourning their parents, or maybe not mourning because there's still hope that their parents are still alive.
mhm,
And we don't really know if their parents are alive or dead at this point. What we know is that they're not there.
right.
And but they still also have to come and say we still have a problem. And it sort of is a coming of age story in a lot of ways, at the same time of also we have to take responsibility
Mhm.
for this, and we have to carry on the legacy. And that's really the first two issues, and there's some fun stuff in there and you're getting to know the characters. So what was that like, because issue three takes a very different pivot?
Yeah, that right. Like, so that was a good point in really setting up, hey, what this is really going to be about. Because, the hey, I want to find my missing parents trope, you know, that was just really to get you familiar with what the kids' journeys, the kids' journey has been so far. They've only been in the role for 6 months, so this is not a lot of time, and they've already been trained and indoctrinated into the Black Jackets, and taught the ways and all of those things. Already developed the skills,
Their
but
apprenticeship has come to a quick end.
yes,
It's
exactly.
a
Well
very good
said.
way to put it.
That is a great way to put it. And so, it's premature for a lot of them. They're not quite ready, but there's no choice, right? They're the only ones that can do this. And so the development and the development of the dynamic between them kind of wrote itself, because very early on, we just did some character designs. We had some general outlines for the characters' personalities, but as the story evolved, it started to take on a life of its own and went down a different path than what I'd originally intended for the series. And so in issue three, that was a different, that was really kind of establishing that. So our perception of the organization and what it was is not correct. And now these kids want to know, hey, like, from here, are we going to find out that our parents were involved with some, evil conspiracies, or did some dirty work out there that we don't want to know about? There's a lot of unsettled. Um, there's an unsettling nature to the way these kids are feeling right now at the third issue. But then 4 and 5 really takes you on a pretty wild spin of what's out there and what's really going on. And so uh, I think with that, it's allowed these kids to mature very quickly, because it went from being fun and hey, let's go, kill some monsters and all that jazz, and now it's actually like a life and death scenario, and it's getting very serious and it's getting darker. So
But to even talk about this, because issue three changes the focus. And I equate your issue three, and I don't know if you're familiar with the anime Ruby by any chance, RWBY. The first two,
go
are you
ahead.
saying?
Yeah, I have heard about it. Yeah.
So the first two issues, and I can just catch everybody up. It's fun, it's child's play, it's enjoyable, and it's just bright, and it's a lot of fun, and there's no real major threat. And then issue or volume three of that show, or the third season, really shifts things up, where that ending changes the nature of the show.
Mhm.
And it feels very much, and I feel like this is a problem with indie comics, is that if you're not publishing every month, and you're publishing every 3 or 4 or every 6 months, you have to understand that your audience is growing at a 6 month pace. And fast forward, if you got 3 issues, that's a year and a half. So
Right.
somebody comes in at the age of 15, by the time the third issue hits you, they're 16 and a half, or
Right.
even maybe 17, and their interests changed. And that sort of happened where the show became, or not the show, but the comic became very adult very quickly, at the end of the third issue when they discover an abandoned Black Jacket post, and well, they learn something very, very in particular about their parents. And so, what was that like, keeping that in mind and saying, look, we're not publishing every month at this point,
Right.
and there is a growing audience. And now, if I came in 2 years ago, I'm 2 years older.
Right.
And so, what was that like, figuring that out, and also setting this thing out into a whole different direction?
I think that's a really good question because that was kind of the knowing that there was going to be a certain pace to this. Um, I knew that we needed to advance the story and do it where a casual reader that's just picking these up as we go, and there's, like you said, there's like 6 months gaps, 6 month gap between issues. Um, yeah, a lot has happened for these characters in that same time frame too. So it almost moves with the assumption that there has been that passage of time. So, and it's not really giving anything away by saying this, but since issue 5 wraps up the first arc, um, we are going to see these kids years later from the events of issue 5. So they're not going to be kids anymore when we come back to them. They will all be adults and, on a very unique path. And so knowing that, I knew that that would allow me to take some liberties with the passage of time of the characters in these first 5 issues. There's some simple ways of doing that, really just establishing some clear dynamics between the characters and knowing that you can see down the road how these relationships will develop. So we'll use 2 characters, for example. Asa is a very private character, very reclusive. She's very studious. And is really caught up reading this book that seems to have a lot of information that she's going to pull from that will somehow benefit them in the future. And that's it. It's also a very dangerous book, has a lot of dangerous knowledge in it. So that makes one of the other jackets very untrustworthy of her. And it's kind of subtly hinted at early on, but that time passes and you're going to know that that relationship between those two is very unsettling and there's not a very good level of trust between those two, and that's going to be something that we're going to continue to explore. So even if it's a year, 2 years from now, we know that those characters have like this extensive conflict that's just building and building and building.
And to even go further off of that as well, obviously, every character, and then I'm going to give a little slight spoiler, but I don't think it's a big deal. A sixth character does join the 5,
Yeah.
and that does add a dynamic. And I don't know where you're going, and I'm not going to start throwing ideas out there because I actually don't know where you're going. But there could be, if years pass by, more characters have joined, and there's other things out there, and obviously there's more moving parts, but even going into this idea of what happened in issue 3, and I think a little bit in issue 4 and issue 5, there's a lot of questions that are both externally happening and internally happening too.
Mhm.
And I would imagine that there's divisions and thought process and a variety of other stuff of what the Black Jackets are, what they should be, how they should operate, what is morally acceptable. Because obviously, and this is just human nature, as you grow older, your ideas and your morals change and your positions change. For instance, where if they want to start a family, 2 of the Black Jackets together, they might have a different attitude than one set of Black Jackets if they're a couple who are just wanting to be a couple for the time being. And so, what is that like? There's a lot of stuff that issue
Sure.
3 kicks off, and then issues 4 and 5 get really into, and there's a lot of questions that I think is being asked. Not so much monster hunting anymore, but why and what
Yeah.
does it actually mean for my life?
That's and I think that's one of the downfalls of the format of a comic book is that there's only so much story you can tell within a 24-page, format. But there is a lot of world out there to the Black Jackets, and uh, what we wanted to do was focus on what the most important element was, and it was that team dynamic. But a lot of people have been reading it and starting to give me a lot of feedback, as they do want to know more about the world. They want to know more about the history of the Black Jackets and what's the parameters, how much of your life is really dedicated to this. Do you have a personal life? Is there any time for that? Can you leave? Like, is this a cult? Like, and the point of that is I kind of want to leave that ambiguous, because that all plays a part in the plot line, right? Is to understand more about the nature of the decision to be part of this, and the
Also, their parents'
responsibility.
decision to do what they did, because
Right,
that's a big thing too, I would imagine, where this isn't so black and white. I mean, the comic is, but
right.
that's not the point here. It's a black and gray comic, everybody.
Yeah.
Black and white and gray. But I would imagine that they also are figuring out what's going on, and as time has passed on,
Sure.
some of these black jackets probably maybe are more sympathetic to what their parents did, and some might be against it, and you have a black jacket war.
Dude, it's getting there. You're doing such a great job of anticipating the right things, because um
Like a white jacket versus a black jacket.
dude,
It's
yeah, there
on
you
the
go.
side.
So there are, that's the point, is like, as when we realize the series, issue 3 is a great example of it, is there is this um
There's a
uh
split.
there's a discovery that really makes you wonder more about the nature. And it's okay to, I can tell you one thing about issue 4 and 5 and really what's going to happen later, but it's not really spoiling anything because I already have it up on the Kickstarter. But the Black Jackets have 4 disciplines. You choose a path, and any intent and purposes, this would be like an RPG class, but you choose one, and you really dedicate a lot of your time to it. It's like going to college and saying, hey, I'm going to be a demonology major, I'm going to be an engineer major, I'm going to be an alchemy major, I'm going to be a sorcery major. And the thing about it is every one of those disciplines has a certain level of risk assigned to it. And engineers are probably the more safe side of that. Alchemists are relatively safe, but then when you get to demonology and sorcery, you're actually playing with fire there, because now you're actually weaponizing the things that you're actually trying to fight, right? So demonologists, they imprison familiars, and they use them as weapons and release them and have control over them, and they can control the minds of beasts, like the advanced ones. But there's different layers of all those different disciplines, meaning that you have people that are experts in that role, and some that are just starting out. Well, the thing is, in the series so far, of what everyone's read, there hasn't been a sorcerer. And then in issue 4, we finally have one added to the group, and he's such an interesting character because he knows so much about the world. So we get to learn a lot about what's happened through this new character. And it kind of puts it in a position for you as the reader to kind of decide, hey, now that we know what's happening, should we go this way or should we go this way? So there's 2 paths to go down, and now the whole group has to decide which path they're going to go down based off of all this information. But the big thing that you find out, and it's actually dropped in 3, is that the Black Jackets dabbled in engineering monsters. And the question around that is why, right? Like, why did they do that? That seems so strange. And one of the Black Jackets from the 2nd generation, we're in 4 generations of the Black Jackets now, but someone from the 2nd generation decided to go into the place called the Void, which is an interdimensional space where all these monsters are coming from. They actually decided to take the fight to them and try to seal off the doorways that keep popping up in our world that are releasing the monsters. They sent someone in. All of this combines to a discovery that they make there, and a big question is answered, and we find out that there's a 5th discipline. And that 5th discipline is the mastery of the other 4. And you're chosen to be a biomancer, and that's what that is biomancy is that 5th discipline. So that in itself starts to open up a pathway of potential for the series, because now we're seeing that the Black Jackets aren't really as concerned about getting rid of monsters. They're actually really trying to find ways to control and coincide with them and utilize them for other intentions.
And
And
this
and the biomancers are the first example of, hey, uh our intentions aren't always necessarily noble. There's some uh we hid this from a lot of people. This is like a secret class that was unlocked by the people that had untapped all the knowledge and learned so much. So biomancers is going to be something that will really play a part in the series as we go forward. And just a brief breakdown on biomancers are people that can manipulate biological processes and even shapeshift. And that is certainly going to um, uh, bring up a lot of surprises and shocks, and there's a lot of exciting things that are going to happen with the biomancers. So that's not a big secret. Like I said, I have a tier on the campaign right now that it's like the biggest tier that you can get, and it's called the biomancy tier. So I didn't really hide that from anyone.
because this obviously raises a lot of stuff, and then obviously divisions are happening and thought process divisions. And I don't think this is the first time, if we're going to go through the entire Black Jacket history, that Black Jackets have disagreed on issues and things of that nature. Because just the likelihood and probability alone is that there have been disagreements before everything, and I'm sure that there's been solutions to said disagreements. But I'm sure at some point we're going to find out what happens when there's disagreements and other things. And who knows, maybe the biomancer came out of a big disagreement for all we know. Or maybe somebody was like, sorcery is getting boring. I want to be an engineer.
That's there is a mix of that. Again, you choose one path, right? Like that was the whole point of all the disciplines is we need you for one specific role. So it's interesting to know that someone decided, hey, I want to know it all. I want that kind of power. And so, and in the pathway of that, the skill sets of an engineer, an alchemist, a demonologist, and a sorcerer are required to have the abilities of a biomancer. And so for that reason alone, biomancers do some pretty sick stuff. I mean, they're really wild. I mean, it really establishes how dark the series is going to be, because we've been safe up until this point. Nothing's been necessarily quite horrific, but
These
biomancers
have been
really are.
tough. They haven't been bloody. There hasn't been real death on the table, for lack of a
Right.
better word. And obviously when you're going to go into a biomancer and what they can do and what they can cause, but we're not going to dive down too far into that because I don't want to ruin things for people.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna get to see a little bit of it, but what we do know is that we just established one of several threats, but this is going to be the one that it's kind of like, hey, a biomancer would be very valuable to have on your team to fight a biomancer that might be on a wayward path, right? So now the kids are questioning, maybe we should try to aspire to be biomancers. So, there's a lot of questions out there for these things, and that's what makes the series so exciting, is that there are just more and more things we're learning about the culture of the Black Jackets. And one of my main goals was to subvert expectations with this, and I think we're finally getting there in the series in a way that's gonna definitely pull the audience in and make them very interested in the future of these characters.
And then obviously, I don't want to push too far into 4 and 5, but it does sort of wrap this up, and these questions are being asked, and we're having all these things answered / thrown at us. And this does wrap up the first arc. And I am curious though, because this is almost a double issue release for
Yeah.
you. And what prompted that? Because it does speed up the release. It solves an issue where if you're putting out more content or you're behind in putting out content, that solves that issue. But it's also a little bit more risky because you do need to require more money You need to have more coverage. You're printing more books. You have to
Right.
cover, not only what everybody orders, but you have to almost do double in a lot of
Right.
ways, if not triple. And so, what prompted this? Because it is a different beast collectively when you're doing double features, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, that the decision came down purely to storytelling because the transition from issue 4 into 5 is so critical that there really shouldn't be. I would hate for people to have to wait, because 4 really sets up a good finale with 5, and I wanted to have that all at once for everybody. I felt the other issues you could kind of break them up and digest casually, but now we're getting into some serious content that has questions that really we need the answers now. We can't be frustrated with waiting 6 months to a year to get this stuff out. So it was the excitement of being able to wrap up that first arc that made me want to do 4 and 5, but also for the courtesy of the reader, get that all completed now for them, because where we go from here is really the real journey of the Black Jackets.
Yeah, and let's even talk about wrapping up a first arc, because I think this is a real problem with indie comics. Is I hate waiting for content. I hate it, and it
Yeah.
drives me mad. Like, I love Netflix. When Cobra Kai drops, I watch
Watch it all.
all in one shot. When Cowboy Bebop dropped, watched it all in one shot over 2 days. And I want to just watch a boatload of content all at once because it solves my itch, it scratches it, and I want to sit down and enjoy it. And while episodic stuff is fun, I watch a lot of episodic anime. I watch obviously episodic TV, but at the same time, I just want all my content at once. And I'm a big, give me all my content, and I want it now, and I want it on my time. And so, what is that like for you? Saying, "Hey, the complete first arc is done here, and I'm giving you 48 to 60 pages of material." And I'm sort of taking not a pure Netflix approach, but I'm giving you double what you want so that you have more of the pie, because that's a big problem with indie now. So when I have to wait 6 to 8 months per issue, I don't
Mhm.
remember what happened. Like,
Right. That is the biggest scare of being an indie creator is I mean, there's not this limitless uh, funds, right?
even to go further, it's also, I have money at certain times in the year, every single year, and I don't have money at other times. And
Right.
that's the other thing too, is that I would rather pay $40 knowing that it's coming, get the entire thing, because there's going to be a point when everybody does something every 6, 7 months. Hate to say this, but everybody's competing for my dollar. And
Yeah.
you can say, "Oh, we're not competing," but you are, because I have $25, maybe $30 to spend on Kickstarter. And
Right.
if your book and another person's book and a third person's book comes out, I gotta go look at it. I mean, I just looked at a Kickstarter that dropped yesterday. It's arguably the biggest Kickstarter in the comic realm, and I saw nothing that I enjoyed on that book. And I know somebody else's Kickstarter, Travis Gibbs's Cthulhu Invades Wonderland, is dropping later this month. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna back that instead.
Right.
But both, Lady Death and Cthulhu Invades Wonderland, it's Cthulhu Invades Wonderland, are competing for my dollar. So I only have 25 or $30. And so that's another big thing too. But you can continue. Sorry for cutting you off.
Oh no, you're good. I mean, you're kind of hitting the nail on the head there, right? It's the timing of when you get the content out and making sure that you're counter programming, being very aware of when other people are launching. March was it surprised me, but there's quite a few campaigns in the indie community this month. Like, it was daunting to see. And
Oh, you have
so,
no idea how many requests I've gotten for people to be on my show this month and in April now.
wow.
It's coming. It's coming. And I'm like, "What's your book?" I don't know you. I don't know who you are. Like,
Yeah, that is what this has been. I've come across a lot of new creators, and it's great to see it. It really is, because it kind of shows you that there's health in the community, and you wouldn't want to see it the other way, where there wasn't many people making this, right? So uh the the biggest challenge really is the fact that there's only so much that we can do when we're really relying on ourselves and our art team to get something out. And we know that money is like such a huge factor in getting these things made. And comics are not inexpensive to make. You know, an average issue can go from anywhere between 3,000 to 6,000, you know, if you're doing like a normal 24-page book. So when you're thinking about somebody's annual income, that for the average person, that's a fair chunk of money. And so that's when you have to go to Kickstarter to get those funds.
I mean,
And that's
I'll break down the money side. So if you have a book that is $8,000, and that if you make $100,000, you're making about $8,200, give or take, every single month. So if you have a book that costs $4,000 to produce, and factoring out printing, then you're doing double, that is essentially $100,000 income book, give or take, because that is one person's income if they make $100,000 a year.
right.
And that, if you actually think about it and break it down and look at ROIs and RORs, comics are very, very expensive to produce.
Sure, absolutely. And it's the hope of getting that out to a wider audience that you can hope to generate some income from. So I think I think the kinds of people that support the indie community are people that understand that there tends to be a large gap in time from the beginning of the production of an issue to the end. It's why you see a lot of creators just decide to go ahead and make a graphic novel, make the full story all at once. The problem with that is it's even more expensive and it even takes longer to create. So that means you're really taking a dive financially for an extended period of time. And like I said, that's a bigger risk. And hoping that you get the ROI on it. Fortunately for us under Bad Bug, like we've had a few graphic novels. We've been able to kind of toy with the idea of just going straight to a trade instead of trying to break things up into episodic. We're toying more and more with that idea. That's like the number one question that we're all asking is, should we just
So
move to trades?
I'm actually very curious about this because I'm in a different camp, and I like graphic novels to read. Don't get me wrong, on a story level, and I read a lot of comics, but I'm also a collector. I'm also a variant guy, and this is where I get all tripped up because graphic novels, you can make money selling graphic novels when they go out of print. There's a whole business for that, but that's not my eBay business. And so I'm very biased because I'm doing very well in my eBay business. And when I buy and sell a book and I bought it for 20, I sell it for 60, that's a very good eBay business.
Yeah.
And so when people on Kickstarter who really appreciate comics, they want those variants. And so what is that like for you saying, hey, we want to tell a good story and we're doing well on that front and people want to read this in a graphic novel format, but there's also a bunch of people who say, look, I want a single issue, very nice limited variant cover,
Mhm.
for myself, and some point in my life I'm going to sell it and hopefully I'm going to make more money on it. So what is that like? Because as a publisher and as an imprint, that's a very complicated question, I feel.
It is. It is. That's why we haven't really acted on it. You know, there's a lot more to learn about the business before we really make any decisions about how we're going to execute things. So we just dabble and we try different things. And that's really that's us for the rest of this year. Half of next year is us trying different things, seeing what works, what doesn't, and recalibrating based off that. So fortunately for us, we have like there's 9 more Kickstarters this year under us. So it's basically like one a month, man. Okay. And yeah, that you want to tell you're laughing because like it's fatigue. It's like, oh, that's a lot, right? Or at least to me it is. And the thing about it is like there's so many other creators. So what helps with that is we're able to pull our information together and learn from each other. And that's been the best thing about Bad Bug has been the sense of community and sharing the learnings together and growing together, making mistakes together, learning together, growing together. And that's, I think, what's helped us get into this kind of rhythm now where we can actually start making decisions about, hey, how are we going to execute 2023? Are we going to do graphic novels? Are we going to do single issues? All that's just part of the discussion. But to answer your question about the collector side of that, we don't we don't think that the graphic novel itself would eliminate the interest of a collector if we did specific things for people that joined us on the crowdfunding side. So, if you had a Kickstarter exclusive cover or several exclusive covers for just the trade, knowing that only one of those covers is going to go to retailers and that's it, right? The rest goes to supporters. That adds value to those variant covers for the trades. And it's the same process. I mean, looking at it like, hey, 24 pages with a variant cover, why would something that has more pages with a variant cover suddenly not have value, right?
I could give you the answer why.
Okay. Good. Give me it.
So the reason why graphic novels don't do as well as single issues is because people view it as a book and they don't view it as a comic. It's harder to get it graded. So at a certain point, a graphic novel can't be graded anymore.
Right.
Also, it's the idea that it's limited. It's also the idea that it's not a comic anymore. It's on your shelf. It's not in your long box. It's also the idea of, somebody's like, hey, this is a key issue and a character like Blackjack in #5 got killed. And I loved it in this issue. But if you have a graphic novel, there are 5 key things that happen throughout that entire book. So it doesn't become a key graphic novel anymore.
Isolating the impact of that story point. Yeah.
So if you have the first appearance of Ultimate, there's trades of Ultimate Fallout, the entire 6-issue arc. The graphic novel, if it was a limited cover / graphic novel cover, would not have the same value as Ultimate Fallout 4, which is the first appearance of Miles Morales.
That makes sense.
Because you're isolating a position, and then also you're getting it signed and graded. And I use that as an example because I have 2 Ultimate Fallout 4s. I also have an Ultimate Fallout 1, 2, and 3. Those books do not carry the same value. They're cool books. They're great art, but 4 is the money book. And that's why this is like my wheelhouse, everybody. So
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You're speaking from knowledge, wisdom.
This is like our favorite topic to talk about, like ever. Like,
well, that's like clearly in like I don't disagree with any of that. Obviously, it makes perfect sense. That's why we haven't really made any decisions yet on it. We're like toying with the ideas of different things. But we understand the value of the variant and the uniqueness of those episodes, right? An episodic experience really increases the impact of those moments because it's isolated to it's like a television episode.
It's also the idea that if all of a sudden, fast forward 5 years from now, Blackjack gets an anime, or gets a cartoon, or it becomes an HBO or gets an option, and there's something that happened in issue 3 that's then the premise that issue 3 is going to be more valuable versus the graphic novel, because people feel that a graphic novel, for the most part, is not limited the same way a comic is,
right,
or a first print run is. And that's the other thing too. And that doesn't mean books aren't valuable. There are Marvel books that go for $100, $200 graphic novel wise because Marvel hasn't reprinted them. And people are like, I want this book and I'm willing to pay 30, 40, 50 bucks overpriced for it because I can't get that story physically anymore. But again, I don't play in that space because I just don't want to buy graphic novels and store them and speculate. I'd rather deal on the comic side. It's also a lot more fun because you could put it up on Instagram.
Right.
And I could actually share a weird experience with somebody. And that's the other thing too, is that a comic book and a floppy is a different experience than a graphic novel, where a graphic novel isn't a collector's position. It's a reader's position.
Andrew, okay, man, we'll just do floppies, okay? All right, man. I'll tell everybody that Andrew thinks it's a terrible idea that we're thinking about doing a trade.
Hey, I thought Scott's book was great. That's not the point.
It makes perfect sense though. Like, because one thing that you mentioned that I hadn't considered before was the grading of books, and that's something that we talked about as well. Is hey, maybe we should make some slabs available for people, right? And
it's not something we've done yet. CGC as a dealer / art group.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many people know this. If you are a comic creator, what you can actually do is you get a discount and you can actually sign it without a CGC witness.
That's cool.
It changed the nature because now all of a sudden you can charge or you could create a different experience if you're CGC because since you're the writer of Black Jackets, if you're offering a 9.8 signed, if I'm in California and you're in West Virginia, there's a good chance we're never ever going to meet. Obviously, I'm on the East Coast, but you know what I mean by that as well. That changed the experience as well now because I have a signed copy of Black Jacket #5, for instance, by you, but I'm never ever going to see you because I'm halfway across the country or the world for that matter.
It's something interesting to start to appeal to the collectors, and that's not what some in our early inception of this was not to. We just had a very narrow perspective of the demographic, and we didn't think about all the potential out there with all the collectors and the value
So
that bring.
So to even piggyback off of that, because obviously I'm coming into this entire world very differently. I came in, and for those who don't know my background, I came in running an eBay business. I still run my eBay business. I just funded my podcast, and I have a very different perspective of Kickstarter now coming out of that experience, both good and bad in a lot of ways. And there's a million things I would do better. But I also understood collector value, and I understand that. And I'm curious, how did you come in? Because everybody in Kickstarter comes in differently. And some people say, hey, I just want to get my book published, and this is more of a hobby and it's not a business. Some people come in with a business mindset, and then some people transform. Saying I did 2,000 my first campaign, I did 4,000 my next, and now 7 or 8 campaigns later, I'm doing 20 to 25,000, which is a small business. And so I'm curious how you have gone and come into it, and then the evolution, because you've done better and better and better in a lot of ways.
Thank you. Do you have any more compliments for me? I really like that. I need to hear a few more of those. We all get this moment of imposter syndrome, like where, hey, should I be doing this? Is this right for me?
Hey, that was day one of my campaign. That was day one.
Well, yeah, right. Yeah, and it's sad to think that you'll measure all of your success based off of one metric, right? And that's, I think, the most important part is getting through all that. Gosh, I really would love to be able to just tell you all the negative experiences that I've had along the way, but then all the positive too, and how like that's so it's offset the negative experiences so much.
It's weird, right?
Yeah.
Because we were speaking off air, and I don't think I need to go through it, but I've had a very rough, like on day 6 or 7 of my campaign, and it's no secret. And it's changed the way I function actually in the comic community by about 7 or 8 people. But I've also had a lot of positive experiences. A few people defended me, and then a lot of people were like, I'm sorry that you're having this horrible experience. People suck. And they didn't use it that way, but I've also had a bunch of weird experiences outside of all of this moving forward. And so it's a very weird concept and experience that I've had, because I've had it all the way down here, and then I'm not functioning well here. For those who can't see it, I'm sorry, but I've had basically down in the gutter, and then I've had it all the way up on top of the ladder, for lack of a better word. And what is that like for you, though? Because you've also probably had that too. And I think every creator.
Oh my gosh, man! I mean, range of experiences. It's an emotional. It's hard to being the master of your emotions is probably the most important part of all of this. Is
that
having
the
good emotional
discipline of the Black Jackets?
Yeah. Well, emotional intelligence is an important part of any kind of business or any kind of. When you're working with more than just yourself, you have to have that at all times, because how you react, what you say, can generate, varying opinions of you. And so you have to be more. The experience for me was learning to be more careful about how I conduct myself. Granted, I'm still an asshole, and I'm still obnoxious on Facebook and everything. That'll never stop. That's just who I am. But
I mean, you know it, and I know it, that snide remarks can cost people hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I don't know. I haven't told this story. I'm not going to mention the comic shop, but somebody made a remark to me and one of the owners, and I don't go to that comic shop anymore. And that probably cost them $10,000 to $15,000 in about 2 3 years.
Right.
So very very easily, a snide remark can cost you tens of thousands of dollars, if
Mhm.
not hundreds, if not millions.
Right.
And I understand that I have to be extremely careful.
Right.
And I've been targeted. People have tried to cost me friendships because of opinions that I've stated.
Yeah.
And people in comments, they will slit your throat.
Yeah. There's certainly an aggressive. It's I've been on the receiving end of it, and I deserved it for sure. A certain level of humility you develop as you go through this whole thing, and learn more and more about the dynamic that you have to have with a team of creators, when you're working with an art team, learning what it is that motivates both, both a creator and an artist. All of that is not something that you learn in a day. It's like interpersonal skills that you have to learn, um, just by trial and error a lot of the time. You're working with new people all the time, so you're always relearning relationships or how to engage people. So all of that happens, and then along the way, you're going to have some negative experiences just because of that. There's just no one has the propensity to get along with everyone. If there is someone like that, there's something going on there. There's just our personalities are so varied.
I mean,
And
I'll put it a different way for everybody on the table. I could work with anybody if there's enough money at stake. Because,
right, right,
and I'm not even trying, I could not like somebody, but if there's millions and millions of dollars that we're both going to make, we're going to figure out how to do it. And we're
right,
going to make sure that whatever happens, happens. I don't have to like you. You don't have to like me.
right.
Um, I believe everybody can work with everybody, even if they hate each other. There's millions of dollars, if not hundreds of millions of dollars at stake.
It's we won't know unless we're in that situation. That's what I would always say. I always go back to that because
Fair enough.
like we haven't been in that situation, right? So we wouldn't know necessarily what we would do
Oh
in
no,
those.
no, no! You and me are never going to work
Yeah,
together.
no, that's so. Um, yeah, not even if it's $1 million, man. But the reality of it is sometimes, I mean, I've had opportunities to work for and work with people that could absolutely generate me revenue, and I didn't want to do it because I didn't trust the person.
Or can conversely, like I don't want to work with my best friends. I just
Yeah, there's definitely, I've learned about that too, because it can really affect your relationships negatively when you work with friends, and you have to have that level of trust, and then sometimes that trust can get broken, and then suddenly this friend that you've had forever, now you have this fractured lens that you see them through, and it can be very difficult to
it's
get
not even
past it.
trust for me. It's the idea that I want to go and I want to play board games and drink with my friends.
Yeah,
And it's my friends. We have a good relationship. I don't want to go and introduce business that can ruin that.
right,
My friends are my friends. When I'm having a crisis in my life, my friends are meant to be there. If I go into business with my friends, it changes the dynamic.
yeah,
And so my best friends, we get along. I pitch them my business ideas. I ask them their opinion. They might overlook like a script if I was writing a comic script, but they're not going to draw it.
right,
Now, if I had a best friend who was an artist, maybe I'll give him a cover, but I don't want him being the 24-page penciler and inker on the book.
right.
So I'm not going to go give somebody, and it's just because I don't want to ruin the relationship.
No, it's smart. I mean, it's something that I learned along the way. Fortunately, too, though, what happens, and I think it happens with everybody, is you develop relationships with the art teams that you work with and the creators you work with, and then suddenly they are your friends. For me, Scott Wilkie is one of the best buds I've ever had my entire life. Somebody that I met through comics, and we're always going to work together. I mean, we're buds, we're pals, we're affiliated with one another. We're business partners, and it's really an exciting experience to find someone creatively that you feel very in sync with, but also has the same intentions and drive as you do. and that itself can be very motivating. So those types of experiences and the relationships and friendships that you develop from that, God, they're so powerful that it offsets the negative experiences that can come from partnering with someone that maybe you shouldn't have, or having a bad experience from a partnership. Um, and I think that's the thing that I've appreciated about all the growing pains that I've had so far, is starting to learn about the right people to work with and the ones to avoid. Like, that's been a really helpful thing through all the mistakes that I've made, and things that I've learned from other people that have shared their experiences and wisdom with. It's you have to have, it's a small circle. Start small, have a really strong bond. Make sure you're with all the people you trust. Don't branch out too much. Don't spread yourself thin. Try to stay focused and grow you and your group. Help them. They'll help you. You'll all grow together. So now it sounds like I'm lecturing and giving advice, but that honestly, that's when I hit a rhythm and I made the kind of progress that I needed to. It wasn't because I did anything, it's because we did anything. We did something together. And so that was because we all started together and worked together and wanted to grow together. That was it. There was, a group of people that really wanted to stick together and support each other.
Yeah, no, I'm not there yet because I'm a one man team, and
Dude, well, it's not easy, right? Like I said, trial and error is what got me there. I didn't jump into comics and say, you know what, I think I'd like to be a publisher. I got in comics saying, man, I just want to make a comic. And then after you do that so many times, you start to learn more and you meet more people, and it allows you to start to better define really how you want to fit in the space. And my big thing was wanting to see other people's great ideas come to fruition and actually happen. Periwinkle by Scott Wilkie is the best example of that. I know Scott was on here with you talking about it. This was an idea that Scott had, and it's the best thing that we've put out. I mean, it's not out yet, but it absolutely is the best book that we have. And it was Scott coming to me with this incredible idea. No one else was interested in it. He almost didn't do it, but I was like, oh my God, we got to make this happen. And if you could have just seen what it might have turned into versus what it came out as, that tells you that, hey, thankfully it wasn't just him doing this himself, that there were other people to talk to, and he had resources that he needed, because one person found the artist for the book, one person found the letter, like we're pulling all these resources from everybody, and it all came together to make really what we think is a genuinely good story. And it wasn't because of one person, it was because of a group that made that happen. So I can only imagine, if I didn't have the experience that I have right now of that camaraderie and that familial bond with these guys, I probably wouldn't be as good as a writer as I am right now. And I'm not saying that I'm a great writer by any means, but they developed me as a writer. Like, I got better because of them. And so find your people, commit, be loyal, take the jabs if it happens. There's going to be some downtimes, but stick it out. And having a great team of supporters and people with great ideas and ambition that's similar to yours makes all the difference. So I hope you find somebody like that, Andrew.
Right now, the only skill I have is I know where to find artists for cover art, and that's it. And I know how to find people who nobody knows who they are.
Yeah.
And I just happen to know how to find the next generation and the generation after them. And I have somebody in mind for a cover that I want to do. And let's just say that how to book a cover and understanding what to ask and how to position it as a real skill to be able to do that.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny too, because I've been turned down by some cover artists. And that was like such a humbling experience, but I definitely punched above my weight. I was
See, I'm the opposite, where I want to punch where nobody knows, where I'm going, and then when you see that cover, you're like, I don't know who this is, but I
Right.
need it. I need it because I'm not interested. Nothing against a bunch of people that I've interviewed, but I'm not interested in what every other person has put out there. I'm
Right.
not. Why do I want to compete? That defeats the whole purpose.
Sure.
That means if I pick up Paul Green, and nothing against Paul Green, that means I got to compete against every other cover Paul Green has done with William Moss.
Right.
That sounds stupid to me. That sounds like it's a red ocean. I want to be in a blue ocean. I want no competition, and I want to systematically eliminate my competition. I want to outperform and outthink you and have carte blanche and then systematically eliminate all of my competition. So this way I control the whole market, which
Yeah.
is why you need to find people who haven't been discovered who are that good. And
Yeah.
that's not an easy task to do.
Yeah, it's funny that you point something out like that too, because there's a competitive spirit behind kind of like the nature of how you select the artists that you're working with and the talent that you have.
Oh, and
It's
by the way, I'm going to say one thing. If you actually find out and find good artists, they should be 4 to 5 times cheaper than everybody else in the top tier. And they will outperform them pound for pound.
well, I think it goes back to like college sports, right? You're gonna perform harder in a college sports team than you will when you get to the pros, right? Because you
Mhm.
are auditioning for that big break. You want to have that moment where you can ascend, right? So if you're an artist that has ascended, then you're on your mountain, right? You're not necessarily competing with anyone anymore. Now people are just coming to you because of the recognition you have, and it seems to build value in their projects and their products if they have a piece from you and everything like that. So we understand that aspect of like pursuing artists, but to your point, like for me, it's finding an artist that is untapped potential that is getting overlooked and being the one that gives them that job that helps them get that kind of
So
exposure.
that's part of it for me too. But the other part is that I have an eBay store. So whatever I don't sell on my Kickstarter, if I'm to book a cover, goes right into my eBay chain. And so when I'm booking a cover, I know what my clients buy off my eBay, and I have repeat customers.
Right.
So I'm thinking on a whole different level. And this is the whole point. If you know your customer's profile on Kickstarter, then you should be building covers for them, and you should have a profile for your customers at a con, and you should be building covers for them. And this is all business decisions. This is not anymore Kickstarter. This is a business decision.
Right.
My metal card was not built for Kickstarter. It was built for cons. There's a whole different ball game on what I thought, and people were giving me shit for it because they didn't understand what I was doing. And they didn't. My secret metal card that's coming tomorrow, which I'll be live showing everybody. So tune in 7:30, 8 o'clock. Again, it's built for eBay. It's built for cons. That's the whole point of what I'm doing. So when I build a cover, it is built for a particular audience, and it is built for that when I go to a con, you stop at my table and you buy it. That's the point because I'm in the business of making money.
Yeah.
And if I just so happen to give artists their ability to pay their rent, that's just a benefit.
Dude, that's honestly it's the best experience of really anything involved with comics is working with an artist and building that kind of partnership that is it's unbreakable because you are a source of income for them and they're a source of income for you too though. So there's this a relationship that it's both parties are benefiting from one another. And it means a lot more when you have an artist that um, decreases their rate with you because they feel so comfortable with you and there's a good level of trust there and that they know that you're always going to have work for them. And so that's when I know I'm like, yes, this is where I wanted to be all along. I wanted to have this kind of relationship with art teams where either they're really enjoying working on the project enough to where they want to stay on it, and if that means that there's a reduction in their page rate to make it happen, they'll do it. That's a pretty amazing feeling right there. And you know that every artist you work with gets better for the most part. They're getting better. They're learning more as you're learning more. People see the work that they did on your stuff, and now they're interested. So they continue to get more and more work. So when that happens and they still continue to want to work with you, even though you might not be the best talent they're working with now, there's probably better people they're working with now. That really means a lot to me.
To even go off of that, because this is super interesting, because there's people who always want to be back on my show. And obviously, and I don't want to sound like I have an ego, but I've gotten better as an interviewer, just by nature. I've been doing this for 10 years, and every single year, and in the last 3 years, with the amount of interviewing that I've done, just by nature, I've gotten a lot better, and I've gotten a lot more comfortable. So one of the things, though, is that it's very humbling for me when somebody who's a big name says, "Yeah, I want to be back on your show." I'm always happy to do your show. And Tom Hutchinson's a good example of that. He's always saying, "Hey, I like being on your show. It's always a good time. You always prep up. I'm happy to be on your show anytime. I got Kickstarters, and you're pushing it out there, and you're interviewing me." And other people are similar. And I've had other people say, "Hey, do you want to? Wow, you just had Tom and this other person on, Jim Noble on. I love both those people. I would love to be. The fact that you asked, I'm happy to be on." It's always nice. So what is that like for you, that people are saying, "Hey, I want to continue to work on this, and I know that I should be charging X for my page rate, but I'm going to keep you at the same level because I want to be part of this," because it's almost loyalty, and they believe in the project. And it's the idea that also saying, "Hey, look, I also want to finish this job," in a lot of ways too, I would imagine. And maybe it's a little bit selfish, but I don't know about you, but I like to finish projects.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like we started a lot of projects under Bad Bug, but we don't make a decision to start something unless we really intend to follow up or finish that. So we're realistically looking at like the overall arc and the cost, not just the single issue cost. But the thing about the artists staying committed, I mean, we've all had the experience of artists that fall off. And so some advice that I've given people is when an artist falls off and you lose connection with them, they ghost you, whatever it is that you want to call it, but they don't continue with the project with you. A lot of times it's not the experience of necessarily working with you or the money. It's that they probably don't really believe in the project. Like their passion's not there with the project.
So I have a question for you. And when you say fall off, because sometimes what happens with artists, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, is that somebody does 3 issues and then they get a really good offer from DC, Marvel, or Image. Is that falling off, or is that saying, "Hey, there's a real opportunity for me where I'm being noticed and not necessarily making a payday, but this is a 15-step jump in my career"?
No, that's a different scenario altogether, right? Like you can't fault anyone for getting a great opportunity like that suddenly establishes them as a like a verified artist, right? Like I guess if you want to call it that,
Because
for lack of a better term.
because one of the things that happens is that people say, "I have a contract for 6 issues."
Right.
And the way I view it is that I could have a contract with DJ Croft for 6 metal cards, but if he got an opportunity to be signed and represented by a big cosplay agency and it would cost me my metal cards, I think it would be me being a dick
Right.
to, not prevent him from doing that based on our contract. I think there could be a position where maybe I could say, "Hey, you know what it is? Maybe we could do one more. We could work it out between him, that party, and then I could release him from his contract." Or there's ways out around it. Or I just release him completely from his contract. He releases me, and he has an opportunity, because that's just messed up. I wouldn't want somebody to hold me to my contract if I had a real opportunity somewhere.
That's already happened with us. I mean, we had an artist penned to do a series for us, and then he got picked up by Marvel. Federico Sabatini. He was on Spider-Man for a while. Now he's on Moon Knight. we were supposed to do a book with him, and he got an opportunity to go to Marvel. So we were like, okay. He did a cover for Black Jackets. Actually, he did a cover for us on issue 3. So it happens, and there's no fault in that at all. Absolutely not. I would never want to be the reason why somebody doesn't progress.
Also, isn't it also the idea that you go to Marvel, and I'm about to blow some people's minds here, but people rarely stay in Marvel. They rarely stay in DC. They rarely stay in Image for their entire careers, or Valiant or Dark Horse. People move around a lot in comics, and it's complicated. And you never know when somebody might be in Marvel and then they come back to the indies and then they go back to Marvel or DC.
Right.
And that's the other thing too, that I don't think you want to burn bridges.
You don't, absolutely not. And there's been very few bridges burned with artists because of that. And it kind of touching back on another point that I was going to connect to it is that when you have that kind of relationship with an artist, the loyalty comes from that, because now they realize that you're more invested in them and you are a fan of them, right? Because you want to see them ascend, you want to see them get bigger, you don't want them all to yourself. Although there is that selfish part of you that absolutely loves their art and wants it always there for you, in terms of, continuing your series or whatever it may be.
Or
you have to be
something like that.
Yeah. So the realism is that
they have to eat too.
What's that?
They have to eat too.
Oh no, 100%. That's I think it kind of brings up another point though, is that the fact that artists are so freelance, like there's a freedom that a lot of them have. I think it scares them when they go to major companies like that, where they have to deliver, and it's a very pressured, time-sensitive environment that they go up there to have it on their resume, but they get back out of it because they're like, wow, I didn't really like that experience.
It's also the idea that I think a lot of people in the indies say, I want to work for Marvel, I want to work for DC. But guess what? You're creating your own characters and you're doing just fine. Somebody's going to tell you how to write Batman or Captain America or Iron Man. And you're going to have an editor who says, what the fuck did you do here? This is shit, man.
Yeah.
And then you say, go back to your typewriter and write it again and write it better. We need you. You did good. This is a creative miscarriage. Now go back. You're going to put a new piece of paper in your little typewriter and you're going to start new tomorrow.
Yeah. Well said.
And that's what happens at Marvel and DC. I mean, an editor might not be so animated as I was. And I'm the first person they may not use a typewriter. Right. But if you did hand it in on a typewriter and you put the X's, and that'd be kind of funny. I think depending on the editor, they might think it's funny too. But roll in a new piece of paper, write it to the typewriter. But I think that's what happens at Marvel and DC. And I think a lot of people, you come from indies, you're like, what the fuck did I get myself into?
Yeah. It is. I've already, there's 2 artists that I know right now that are working. One's working at DC, one's working at Marvel. And it's different experiences for both of them.
And they probably keep a bottle of Jack next to their.
Oh man, no! Like I'm not going to drop their names because they both had somewhat negative experiences, but for different reasons. And it really gives you insight into how important minor league players like us are in those situations, because we all started small and some just escalated quickly, and I think some people really just favor going back to the minor leagues and having that sense of true ownership and freedom and ability to create, not having a lot of dictation to the work that they're doing, that they can really have that liberty to breathe and do things the way that they would like to do it. Have that true creativity.
And I'm going to throw something out there, and it's no secret I'm a big wrestling fan. There are people who have gone through NXT and WWE, And the reason why they went there is that they enjoyed being on the indies and they were making really good money. But they understood that if they did a 5-year stint in WWE and then they went back to the indies, they'd be making more money. I'll give a really good name out there that's probably the best example. And because WWE, he's making real money, Matt Cardona. That guy's a workhorse, and that guy is all over the place. He's got 5-6 championship belts. He's slaying in AEW and Impact. And one of the things that's very important is that he sort of his WWE tenure and being in WWE for, I think, over 10 years has made his value worth more. Or a guy like Anthony Green, who spent about 10 months in WWE, his rate on the indies, because he was in NXT, has increased. And so some people also understand that if they do 2-3 years in DC or Marvel, their rate and their notability and their draw to con increases, and it changes the nature of their business model, where it might add another $50 to their page rate or another $100 to their page rate at some point, or it might just get them another 4 projects to work on every month. And that's a whole different ballgame. When I get a big guest on my show, you say, okay, this guy is now serious. And it changes the nature because I'm treated differently.
Sure.
And so that's a whole nother concept as well.
Yeah, it is.
Good so a lot of fun stuff's going on.
Dude.
And,
I didn't realize that we were going to get in so deep tonight, man. So
yeah, well,
we're just talking about Black Jackets, man. It's good. I really enjoy talking about this stuff because there's really just never enough people to really get, perspective on the business and
this is the whole thing, is that people don't understand the business, and I think people view comics. And one of the things that I really want to start questioning, actually, I'm very honest about it, and I have to tip my hat off, is my question to people's Kickstarters, and I want to soften it up, but I'll say it bluntly, is your Kickstarter a healthy business? Because I'm now shifting my position on how I think, where I'm viewing it on my eBay position. Going through my Kickstarter is not healthy. What I just did and I funded, it is not healthy at all. And it's not that I'm losing money. It's reducing my costs significantly, where I've reduced my cost by 80%, which is great to run my project for the next 18 months, give or take. But it didn't reduce it by 100%. So I can't take a distribution off of my Kickstarter. And I'm realizing as a business that my Kickstarter did what it needed to do, and it's a good starting point. But moving forward, I got to figure out how to reduce my costs tremendously, or I have to figure out how to raise more money. And that's a different ballgame. Now, technically speaking, with sponsorships and a variety of other stuff, I am in a healthier position. But that's the whole thing. So I understand. And that's my question to a lot of people's Kickstarters, is that, are you in a healthy position in your Kickstarter, in your business, and what you're doing? And I think these are great questions that need to be asked. And I don't think people think about this. And it's weird. And I'm not trying to be like a dick about it, but I'm trying to say, like, this is what I think the community needs to really think about.
Mm-hmm. No, it is. I think we learn from each other too. So we see that almost every creator goes through crowdfunding channels to generate funds to reinvest into, future issues of the same project or branch out into other projects. So you have to really believe in the project that you're currently running and having faith that it's going to generate the revenue that you need, not only to make it, but for it to pay it forward. And we've had some hits and misses with that. We don't really share that information publicly, obviously, but
I'm not going to press you on it. Don't worry.
Yeah, we everything we're still learning. What I can tell you is,
talk about that concept a little bit. I'm not going to press you on the actual numbers, but one of the things that I think it's very important is that sometimes what happens on a Kickstarter, and stop me at any point if I'm wrong, is you miscalculate printing, you miscalculate timing, you miscalculate art costs, you miscalculate stretch goal costs, you miscalculate how much something's going to be for a variant. You might thought that you budgeted at $300 and it's really $400 and stuff like that, right? I mean,
oh man, that's where you have to make the decision on, do you do this because it's a hobby and you really enjoy it and you just love what you're doing and you just want to continue to make it, even if you're in the hole because you've made it, knowing that there's just some people out there reading the story that you want to tell is, the reward. So I have that mindset. That's absolutely my mindset as a creator. But then on the business side of it, I've been better at planning and budgeting because I want to continue to do this for others, not just myself. So you have to assume that they need a profit from this for it to be beneficial for them to continue. So it becomes more of a selfless act of making sure that there's disciplined spending so that they get what they need to continue. And that's where I would say Kickstarter can be very viable, is that we've seen creators that generate insane revenue streams from Kickstarter. I'm not one of those people yet. I still average, anywhere between 200 to 300 backers a campaign, which is not huge. I mean, it's
Hey,
decent.
you're doing better than me.
Well, yeah,
38 guys, 38.
Yeah, but like, I've done quite a few of these though. Like, I'm on my 11th Kickstarter right now, so
I will be on my third one by next November. Hopefully.
See, yeah, and you'll gain momentum. You'll learn more about what worked and what didn't, and all of that, and that's normal. So for me though, what I've learned the most is that Kickstarter is valuable for a lot of different reasons. The most important thing that we can get as a creator is feedback, and we don't ask for enough of that. We don't push for feedback enough. We don't really try to get ahead and learn from others and solicit honest feedback. And that's the problem that a lot of people are having, is they're not getting better as quickly as they could, simply because egos involved or insecurities are involved. And so we don't expose ourselves to the honest feedback that's out there. Kickstarter does that though.
I'll throw something out there for those who don't know. So one of the things is that, like, 18 months ago, we were speaking about me running a Kickstarter, or maybe it was like last May. I don't even remember. It was sometime last year we were talking about this. And I was like, hey, how am I going to run and get funds? And it took me 6 months to even come up with the idea, do I run a Kickstarter? Because what happens if I fail? And that's a big question. Now,
Right.
My Kickstarter is different than yours because I have minimal costs. There's a difference between my entire show and somebody else's because I have minimal costs and minimal. If I failed, it wouldn't be the end of the world because
Right.
I didn't outlay like $3 to $4 grand worth of things. So I'm not predicated on risking a huge amount of money. But at the same time, I'm like, what is that going to mean for my credibility? It's a very vulnerable position. And I would imagine that if you're a first time comic creator, if I throw my idea at the wall, what happens if I get 5 backers? What does it do to you on a mental level? What does it do on you on a confidence level? What does it do for you on a project level? And then how do you say, okay, what did I do wrong? And now is there going to be a stigma attached with what I did?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole big complicated thing, not to mention that on a mental level, it's got to fuck with you, because what if your idea really sucks? But you just spent like $3 grand.
No, I when I first started, that's exactly what happened. I was proud of what I started with, but first thing I ever did was a superhero book, and I didn't have a good.
It's rough, man.
Dude, that's like that. I will not get back into that genre. But what I can tell you about it is that it's okay to step back and look at something that you've done and say, hey, I can see the flaws in this. Is this salvageable? Can I improve this to where I can get people bought into it? It's okay to sit back and really assess your own work and let others assess it. Feedback's a gift. That's what I always tell everyone. It's a gift that costs nobody money. You just have to make sure that when you get the feedback that you really listen and consider it and don't retaliate, don't react, because the moment you are trying to explain yourself or defend once people are giving you feedback, they're not going to give you more feedback. It was a bad experience for them. They wanted to be honest with you and tell you what they were thinking, and they didn't want the negative fallout from it, right? So you have to really encourage people to be honest with you. The great thing about Kickstarter is it allows you to communicate directly with an audience. I mean, they're a message away, and they vote on the value of your project a lot of the time with the money that you accrue, right? So the success measurement on Kickstarter really is how many people back it and how much money they want to give you. So the metric that I look at the most is the average backer cost, like what the average backer paid. That's how I've measured every Kickstarter. It's not how many backers. Okay.
Yeah.
It's more about how much each one spent.
See,
And
that's
that,
interesting.
yeah, no, that's the most important metric that is provided by Kickstarter that everyone overlooks, because a lot of people will be like, hey, I got 770 backers, 40 grand, and that's fantastic, right? I would absolutely love to have those numbers, but I'm not in that ballpark. I'm not like that creator yet, and I'm just looking to grow.
See,
So we need to have a metric that really proves there's a measurement of success. And so we look at that one specifically internally, most of all. And what I can say about our experience with Kickstarter is that's gotten better every time because we've built better campaigns. We've learned about what rewards work and which ones don't. And we ensure that we continue to build the value of all the books that are under Bad Bug, not just any one. It's not like we're building the value of a creator, we're building the value of a brand. And that's the difference between us and I think a lot of the other creators that are out there. And I think that's why we can really successfully look inward and say we've made progress, we've gotten better, and it's helped because of Kickstarter. Like, I can honestly say that. So yes, I'm one of the people that would tell you that it's absolutely worth it. 100%.
no. I mean, I'm the first person to say that somebody gave me feedback, and I definitely was defensive. But I think they'll give me feedback again. But it wasn't from Kickstarter. It was somebody who didn't back my Kickstarter, and that's tricky because if somebody's giving you feedback on your Kickstarter but they didn't back it, well, you might be providing valuable information, but you also didn't have skin in the game. So you backed my Kickstarter. If you gave me feedback on my Kickstarter, I'm more likely to accept that feedback because
100%.
but also they give me some ideas, but also I'm in a circumstance where I can implement some of the ideas. But sometimes you're in circumstances too with a book where somebody's like, you should have 5 more variants. And you're like, but I can't afford it. And that's the thing too, is that feedback also, when you value feedback, it has to be what you can do. If somebody says you should go and buy a premium StreamYard account and pay another $500 and that's not in your budget, that's not going to be constructive feedback. Where the problem is that you could tell me that I need a better camera for this thing, I can't afford it right now because it just money's tight. That's not helpful feedback.
No,
per se.
We ran a test. There was 3 tests we ran actually, and we had 3 separate focus groups of about 20 people, and we wanted to make sure that they didn't quite know each other that well, because we didn't want there to be a lot of inner conversation going, so that way they would only respond to the product we showed them. But what we did was we sent scripts to one group, we sent art to one group, and then we sent books to another group. And what we did was, from that information, we really started to understand what was reasonable feedback, what was valuable feedback, and what wasn't. The worst feedback.
I wish your book was purple. That's not
That's not that. Like we were getting some that were just saying, "Hey, artistically, I don't think this looks good," and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, well, that's not valuable feedback.
But if somebody said, if you sent them a cover and said, "I wish this lettering was yellow and not green," and it's sort of the title thing, that's more constructive because it really pops off.
Sure, that's a different when it's something that we can action, it's valuable feedback. If it's not something we can action, it's not valuable feedback.
Or some says, I wish there was a virgin cover of this book. That's doable.
That's doable. Yeah. Like that's a customer telling you what they want, and that's perfect. You know, we can do stuff like that and learn from that. Absolutely. But if they're saying things like, hey, you know, you should go with this kind of artist for this, and that kind of, like, that's the kind of stuff that can irritate a creator, but we don't take it that way. But what we do is we look at that person and say, okay, we are not going to this person for feedback.
I'll give an example on my
They're not
podcast.
valuable feedback. They're not giving valuable feedback.
I'll give an example on my podcast side. Let's say somebody says, hey, I really wish you'd share out the Spotify link to your show. That, and if I'm not on Spotify, you know what I'm doing? I'm going to put my show on Spotify.
Yeah.
And that's great because somebody says, hey, and then I get 10, 15 people who really want to say, hey, I really want to listen to you on Spotify, and I'm not on Spotify, or they have some weird thing and it's not going to cost me any money. Like, I would really love it if you join this group and this hosting site or this distributor site, or, you know, you're not on Spotify yet. Can you please join Spotify? Can you join Amazon? And somebody gives me feedback on a podcast, I'm like, yo, absolutely. That makes 100% sense. I didn't even think about it, right?
Right.
So that's my issue. So the people are giving me feedback. They gave me some good suggestions, and I'm working on it. But it's also, it could take a little bit of time because, well, things cost money to fix sometimes, and things move slow. So that's the other thing too.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, I do want to get into the rewards, but I want to get paid.
Oh, am I running a campaign? I don't even remember. Hold on here. Let me get this.
Well, I do have an ad. So we're going to be back in 35 seconds, everybody. Well, now that I got paid, I'm thrilled. So I got no problem admitting that I run ads because, well, I like to keep this show as free as humanly possible. And that's Cowabunga Comics. They got a great website, a lot of cool variants. They got a Department of Truth variant up in their store. So really into that. Kyle, who is one of the owners, actually did the variant cover. Really cool store. It's down in Florida, but they can ship anywhere in the world. They got great books too. So go check them out, and they're a really cool store. But anyway, I do want to get into rewards with you because Black Jacket, and we've gone deep. Maybe we should have called the Black Jackets instead.
That's terrible.
I mean, I don't know. We could have went into the void, and
Yeah, I like that.
we could have sealed up some of the holes in my podcast.
Dude, there something about this campaign. I was like looking through it, and God, the amount of art on this campaign is the most I think I've ever had. It's crazy, honestly. Like issue 4 and 5 have 6 variants, and potential for 7 because part of what stretch goals is unlocking an additional one. So that right away was already a big spend, right, for the campaign, but worth it.
I know. I have a good idea of how much you spend on your campaign. Easy.
Sure. And honestly, some of it would surprise you because I've been able to lock in really great rates with a lot of artists, you know, so that's helped keep some of the costs down. But yes, this is the book that I make, not because I make money off of it. It's because I really enjoy building the world and creating it. And so this is my hobby book. This is the one that I really just enjoy doing. And it costs me a lot of money when I do a lot of variants, but I just love seeing these artists and their interpretations of the characters and using those color restrictions that I have on the series where every issue has a color theme. And it's just really exciting how inventive and creative they can be.
So let's talk about some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I got pictures, and pictures are fun.
I like them. Put them up.
I don't know exactly what artist did what, but I think this is
Tomaselli did this one.
so obviously we got yellow, black, white, grayscale, and then
Mhm.
there's this one that's cool too, and
Love it.
through the shadow.
Ellie Nichols did this one. She's fantastic. I've known Ellie since I was a wee child, and she's done some amazing work. Uh, she's done some great covers for Black Jackets before and other books. This is probably her best. Like, this is the one I've really enjoyed. So when I got this back, I got extremely excited. Loved it.
Then there's this one,
Yep.
just kind of cool. I love the outline. It just makes it pop.
It does, right? It's those simple choices. And again, it goes back to the fact that they're using one color to create so much depth and texture. And it's a challenge, I think, for some artists. And that's why they kind of gravitate towards Black Jackets, is because it's a fun concept from the visual side of it, with the covers at least.
This one's cool. I don't know if this
Yeah.
is a legit cover or not, but it's super cool.
It is. It's a cover. Yeah. Winston Gambro did this one. Really talented designer, artist. Definitely a great logo designer. That's the one thing I would tell you about him. He's a masterful logo designer.
And then there's this one right here.
Yes. David Brame, fantastic artist, has worked on some really great indie properties, has years and years of experience. I needed to get a piece from him. This seemed right for him, and he did a really great job with this. The composition of it's just really unique. When I got it back, I was really excited about it.
And then this one.
Jason Miller, great artist, has a really fun book called Death School. It's a shout out to 80s slashers, and he did such a solid job with it that I tapped him for a cover for Black Jackets. And I love the whole exhausted, busted nose. We got, Isaac back there with a bloody nose. We got broken glasses, and it's a fun depiction of them, I think. And they got one character over there giving the thumbs up, like, hey, we made it out of this thing, but it really sucked.
And then there's issue 5, which is blue.
Yes. My favorite cover by Tomaselli on the series. He killed it with this one. And he did something different here, where the characters really aren't in black and white. It's still monochromatic in a sense, right? Because it's blue and white and just the darkening of blue mostly in this. So it really struck me when I got this back from him, and I really, really loved this. It's a really impressive cover.
And then there's this one right here.
Summer Dale, who's an artist that I work with all the time. She did some, and I should have sent you the images before I got on, but I just got them back. She did some trading card designs for Black Jackets, and they're amazing. But this cover it pops. It's really exciting to see artists create monsters for the covers that haven't existed in the books yet. Kind of helps build the world in a way. And I loved her monster design here. The fungus that's growing off its body, and you can see Lynn there in the center's picked a small mushroom off the back of it and is holding it up and looking at it and inspecting it. It's a cool look. It definitely gave a different side, I think.
And there's this one, which is similar to
Winston Gambro again. I think I'm going to tap him to do this every issue.
And then there's this one right here.
Yeah. Luca Vasallo. He is the artist on Heavy Metal Drummer. That's with Behemoth. Really, really good artist. Does some really crazy artwork. Check out his stuff, everybody. Like, he is a brilliant artist. Loved how this turned out.
And then this is another one.
This is another one. So number 12. Edward Bentley is a really, really unique artist and very skilled, very talented. But what's cool about this cover is it's the first cover that the monsters you're seeing, they're not in the issue, right? But they look like they belong in that world. The focus of this is the house where the Black Jackets live, the Wilshire. And it's our first time seeing a full clear shot of the house. So I reserved that for him. This is our first time inside the book or outside the book seeing the house. And he did a great job with it. He really did. He created that right kind of atmosphere Good use of the blue. Very good balance throughout the whole composition. It was masterfully done. I was really proud of the issue 5 covers was really blown away by, honestly. But really proud of those.
And then obviously I just showed the physical, but you could get this stuff digital. You could just get issue 4 digital. You could get issue 5 digital. I don't know why you would get one but not the other digital, but that's not the point here.
Believe it or not, I've had some backers that did that. So
I mean, I guess on a
it's weird.
physical level that it might make sense because you might say, "Hey, look, I just like a particular artist's work,"
Yeah.
which happens, which makes sense, and I've seen that before too, where it's like an issue 4 and it's just a particular artist, and somebody's an artist collector
Right.
versus a book collector, which is cool. To each their own. But you could get them single, you could get them both digital, you could get them both tiered up. I think covers are your choice. Physical, you could get one or the other. I'm pretty sure you have add-ons as well. That somebody says, "Hey, I like covers A and C of 5 and only cover C 4." I'm sure that could be arranged. You could also get a whole digital catch-up if you're just saying, "Hey, I'm not too sure if I'm going to like this series, but let me try it." And then get the whole first arc. You get the physical catch-up, which I think is basic. Whatever 2 covers you want of issues 4 and 5, essentially. You get the entire physical thing of pretty much everything from issues 4 and 5. You get everything from Bad Bug physically or collected, whatever you want, and all sorts of stuff. You don't have to like Ryan's book, I promise. It's all right.
That's amazing. I think the thing that I've the rewards that I really enjoyed making the most was the discipline tiers, because they're around.
Yeah, it's the
They're around,
alchemist, the demonologist, the sorcerer, the engineer, and then there's the biomancer, which is everything.
yes, yeah. So those in particular, I really enjoy making because as the series goes on, we're going to flesh out the identities of those disciplines more and more. So to get these things, like these are limited. These are a limited reward. There's not much of this in production. I'm not going to make more of it. This is just, we might have this available in the next campaign depending on how well it does this campaign. But yeah, you're getting a t-shirt, a jacket patch, a hat, your choice of issue 4 and 5 covers for $70. So and to be transparent, $70 for this amount of stuff being custom made, there's very little margin for me in it. I made these tiers specifically just because I wanted them. I thought they were cool. And
you like my metal cards.
What's that?
You like my metal cards. I didn't make my metal cards because I knew I wasn't going to sell 120 of them. I just wanted metal cards.
Yeah, no, I made this stuff for me. Like that's the one thing I always tell people about Black Jackets is I made this book for me. And it's great that I have readers that have wanted to follow it. That's a plus. But it's something that I really enjoyed building. And
I know the one mistake you made on these tiers.
Not possible. I'm flawless.
One mistake is you should have created private Facebook groups for all of them.
Why?
Or for so when you pledge to this, you get to join a private Facebook group with other members.
Oh, okay. But what if they're not on Facebook?
Well, that's that.
Yeah, there you go. See, like, I wish that everyone that was on Kickstarter was following me on social media, but what I've realized is a great deal of them, they didn't find me from Facebook. They just found me by searching or getting onto my newsletter. And yeah, I mean, that's what we did do, something that we are doing is more of a Bad Bug thing instead of just a singular book. Is we're going to have kind of like what you would say is a street team, and these are people that are going to help build your build the awareness around your company, right? So we want to give them some really great incentives for doing that, and so we've danced around different ideas, but one of them was that, there's only going to be so many members of that and they have to be active, but as long as they're active they get all our books for free. So that's something that we've toyed around with, but we're not there yet. But that's a great way to get exclusive with us and bring real value to Bad Bug, but also it brings real value to you because you monetarily benefit from this because you're not paying for our books, because you're doing a lot of groundwork for us to get our name out there. And that has more value than the margin we get off of a book we sell you.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime I can get, so one of the things, and I'm very honest about this, is that I need money to operate my show. But if somebody wants a relationship with me, send me your fucking book for free. Because the likelihood of you getting on my show, and we were speaking about this slightly before, where people are now asking me a lot for interviews. You know what you should do if you really want to be on my show? Send me your book to my house and send me a physical copy, because the likelihood of you getting back on, as I was saying, over and over and over again, it just increases massively. Dan Schmidt sent me a copy of his book. His book, he was charging like $20 for it, maybe even 15 with free shipping in the US. He probably made like $2 on the book. He sent it to me for free. You think that when Dan has something, I'm not going to put him at the front of the line? Of course I am. And it's not that hard. Thomas Johnson just sent me a bunch of his books, and somebody who runs a board game just sent me. You don't think I'm not putting them at the front of the line? Of course I am. And that's the whole problem, is relationships matter. And even if you do pay to be on my show or make a donation or however you want to justify it, if you send me your books, I am more likely to, because that's forming a relationship. And believe me, I'll send you metal cards back. So, because I understand relations, and legitimately 10 metal cards are going to be going out to people to keep relationship stuff open. But it's a big issue, I think, that people don't understand, because you can't just say, hey, Andrew, I have a Kickstarter. Do you want to interview me? It's say hello to me. Ask me how my day is going. I appreciate it. It's hey, man, how's your day going?
Yeah.
I hope it was miserable, and I hope you die in a
That's how my conversations go. So,
but anyway, no, seriously, somebody said, hey, man, I hope you die in a ditch. How's your day? I'm like, that's cool. I'm doing all right. He's like, good. I hope you die in a ditch. I'm like, coming on tomorrow, man. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
That's the secret code. We're doing it, baby.
Wow, man. Are you sure that wasn't me? Like, that really does sound like me. So
I'm just saying. It's, if you say that to me, I'm probably gonna get you on immediately. But that's something that's very interesting that you're doing about Bad Bug and all that stuff, because I think it is important to have a bigger social media footprint. And I'm starting to do that as well. I mean, I'm spending in the next, all today, I was just setting up social media, and people think they don't really get what I'm setting up. But back in October, November, and December, I had every day 25 to 30 posts going out on Twitter and Facebook that had nothing to do with me promoting, very little to do with my interview stuff, a lot of memes, but it helped to drive traffic.
Yeah. That ultimately, at the end of the day, our success isn't measured by money right now. Like, there's a certain aspect of it is in terms of the crowdfunding, but right now what we want is saturation is the term that I use a lot. And what that means is there's always something happening. There's always something we're doing that is staying engaged with people. And that's, I guess another word for that would be frequency, but we like to stay connected and have deep connections and good intimate conversations with people always, to continue to generate excitement and to get support. But that's been probably the only reason why we've continued the way we have is because of that, honestly. If we were just doing this because of hopes of generating revenue at this stage of who we are, then it wouldn't be intelligent to have that kind of business plan right now, because we need brand awareness. We don't need a quick $1,000. We need people to know about us. So yeah, the street team thing is definitely something we're working on right now to make sure that that's going to be valuable for us. But yeah, and there's so many things. We got a big list. I mean, there's a big list of things that we want to try and test and do, but we organizing them to determine which ones are the most feasible ones to execute and how we're going to measure the success of it. Once we know that, then we can start putting it out there so we know what kind of data we're looking for and how to collect it to see if it's actually beneficial. So yeah, we're going to be running all kinds of crazy tests and doing all kinds of unique things just because.
No, you're way ahead of me. I gotta go figure out, because definitely I need to revamp. Facebook is complicated, and Twitter is interesting, and definitely revamping social media is a big one. But I'm getting back into the game, and I got a feeling that the next 6 months are going to be fun.
I'll be there watching it all happen.
One or two things is going to happen. It's either it's all going to burn down, or it's going to go all the way up to the moon. One or the other. There's no middle anymore.
All right. Well, I'll try to step in and help any way I can if you feel like it's burning down.
No, it's all right.
Or maybe I'll just tell you to,
So
die in a ditch again.
Sometimes a forest has a fire to get rid of all the debris, and something new grows up. And that's very important, because it's a healthy ecosystem. And so sometimes you need a fire to kill out all the dead leaves. And then the trees.
Where did you read that, or did you just come up with that on your own? Because that was quite beautiful and inspirational too.
Oh, I wish I came up with it. I wish. Yeah, I really wish.
Dude, that was beautiful. I almost teared up just now when you said
if I came up with that, do you really think we would be here? You wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here.
You're a freaking poet, dude.
Oh, yeah.
But
but
all right,
obviously,
so,
I don't want to keep you here all night.
So I think you do. We're coming up to the 2-hour mark. And listen, I enjoy it, man. I could talk to you all night.
I'm the new Joe Rogan for comics. I've taken Joe Rogan's spot, everybody.
Dude.
I'm just one of the sexiest men on the planet right now.
There you go. Like, I agree.
Up here, at least. Down there, it's not working. I have a little bit of a gut.
Oh, just a little bit of one? Okay. Dude, I'm at my peak, which is where I'm at right now, 190. I weigh 190 pounds.
I'm like 220 right now.
Are you? Nice. How tall are you? I'm 5'10".
I'm 5'11", so it's clearly
okay. So we know where that extra is going. It's just that you got an inch on me. So, dude, like, honestly, I didn't gain this weight until I met Alice and got married, and I got secure, and then I just started to enjoy life. And yeah, the outcome of that is your body punishes you by retaining water, I guess. And I like to think it's water weight, but
I'm sure that what's gonna happen is that I'm gonna meet a girl, and then she's gonna get me in shape. So,
dude, I hope that happens. If that's what you want to get in shape, I hope that
like
Alice and I got each other fat. She's fighting it off. She's like jogging and doing all this stuff and really doing what she needs to do. But
I'm gonna find a girl, and she's gonna turn me into Brock Lesnar.
Dude, I think that's your calling, man. You probably, you're great at this, but maybe you should start to think about entering the world of wrestling.
I already have a promotion already, and
all right, there you go. See,
I'll tell you about it up there, so nobody steals it. Yeah. But you got a lot of stuff going on, and I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself. Obviously, you got a hell of a lot going on with Bad Bug right now. You got a lot of books coming. Ryan just joined up with you guys and brought 2 books over, and possibly some more work is coming out of Ryan. You know,
Yeah.
Scott's got his stuff coming. You got stuff coming. I think you have a few more people coming in and out, and things are kind of moving in that direction. So, where
Yeah.
can people find Bad Bug? Where can people back this campaign? Where can people just bother you on the internet? You know, where can people request? Us to take a snapshot as siblings.
Wow. So I'm gonna just skate right past that. I'm gonna the best way to find me is on Facebook. I'm 38 years old and basically a boomer. Like for a lot of people, I would be categorized as such, and I use Facebook primarily. I am learning Twitter as we speak. Not so good at that just yet, but you can find me on there too. Mr. Teener is my handle on Twitter. It's just Mr. Teener. Mike Teener is how you'll find me on Facebook. There's not many of us with that last name, so that kind of helps narrow down the search. And then badbugmedia.com is our website. Now that's going under construction right now, but we should have that up and running fully within I think 30 days is probably being a conservative estimate. But we're going to be adding a lot of content there, and then we're going to encourage people to start going to YouTube for us as well. We're going to have a show, so that's more to come on that, obviously. But we are on YouTube, and you can watch all of our trailers for all of our books. They're on there. Just search for Bad Bug Media, and you'll find us.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I've been saying it 28 months now going on. The last 28 months I've been saying it, and I'm going to keep saying it. You have to support indie because indie comics does not get made without all of us supporting Kickstarters, campaigns, Indiegogos, backing people's books on their websites, buying things at cons, because all that money goes back into producing the book, goes back into printing the book, goes back into keeping the lights on for an artist, goes back into buying new equipment for an artist or writer, or even maybe buying the writer a six pack, because that is helpful sometimes in life and it's needed every once in a while. And some of the greatest ideas have come out of somebody having a beer. So,
I agree. So
so
I'm grabbing my pal here. We just gotta bring him on for a second too. Sometimes if you just kind of give me some money so that I can feed this guy, guys. So if you could please back Black Jackets so Jack here can eat, that would be great. Because all the money's going into the comics. Not much of it's going into his tummy, but somehow he's still fat. I don't know how it's happening, but he's a big guy.
So continuing off of that, and I'm saying this as well, where money's tight. I get it. Everybody's in different economic situations. People are still coming back from COVID in a lot of ways and other things. And if you're in a situation where money's tight, where there's a lot of projects out there, you can share out the project on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and all of that is free to share out a project. You could go tell somebody, and those things go a long way because you don't know who's watching, you don't know who's checking it out. And so you're like, oh man, I didn't see this project. There have been people, and I'm sure you have seen it too. You're like, man, I didn't see this project for the last 28 days. Where the hell has it been? And you've been posting it every day. So that's something that I think is a big deal. And so if money's tight, a share goes a long way. And so I recommend everybody sharing it out. And if you do back it, let people know that you backed it. Kickstarter makes that very, very easy to do. So let people know because that's also seen and it gives it a vote of confidence. As far as I'm concerned, obviously, I appreciate everybody watching. If you need printing for your book and you're not happy with your printer, use Mixam. 5% off, Andrew Davis message tab. You could go buy my metal card. They'll be up tomorrow night or Saturday. You could buy my secret limited to 50 metal card. That's actually a really cool metal card. And I'm only going to make some of those. I think I'm going to make like 45 of them available because I'm keeping 5 for myself. And you can only get that on my eBay store, Pop Out of Make Comics Collectibles. So you could go check that out. You'll catch me in the video tomorrow night with my business partner on the metal card, DJ Croft. You can go buy my t-shirt because, well, I like to clothe people in really cool t-shirts. And I also need money, so go support my t-shirt. If you're a Gundam fan, Taco Bell fan, or the most interesting man in the world fan. Any three of those supply. Go.
Hey,
You can go PayPal
sorry,
me
I gotta cut
money.
you off for a second. What did you say about Taco Bell?
I'll pull it up right now. I'll pull it up. Okay. This is
So
my
I got
t-shirt.
while you're pulling that up. Oh, see, that's awesome. So like, I love Taco Bell. Okay, it's like my favorite place to eat, and I like Jason Pell, who's also a creator for us. Bearskin is the book that he put out. For Christmas, he got me like $150 in Taco Bell gift cards. So that speaks to me. I might actually get that shirt, man. So
So the
great
story is
job. You got me
that.
on here to buy something of yours. It's clever, really.
So the story of that shirt, for those who are interested, is that the Earth Force in Char's counterattack is called Londo Bell. Londo Bell rhymes with Taco Bell. So it's the joke is that the most interesting man in the world says, I don't always drink Dos Equis, but when I don't always drink, but when I do, it's Dos Equis. So I combined all three of those things perfectly. So yeah, you could go buy my Redbubble t-shirt. You could pick any color you want on it. It's super cool. I hired somebody from like Bangladesh to do it. So I outsource jobs.
Wow, look at you. Such a nice guy.
Hey. I gave him like a $25 tip.
Wow.
So
I haven't gotten a tip.
it took him 3 days.
Yeah.
3 days to do it on Upwork, like of all the places to hire your art team from. And I'm gonna do an entire comic off of Upwork. Like I'm gonna hire my entire art team off of Upwork and be like, here's how we're doing it. I'm gonna put that on the Kickstarter and I'm gonna put the exact hours it cost for. But I digress. So
Yeah.
please go buy my t-shirt if you really like my t-shirt. It's not a requirement. I just really appreciate people checking this out. I have Buy Me a Coffee too. If you want to donate or you want to buy a guest spot, or better yet, you could just give me your credit card and I'll take what I need. So on that note, before I get in trouble and I get you and me canceled and ruin everything, I'm going to give you a chance to have the final word.
Great. So thank you all. I think it's never gets old to thank everyone. Thank you, Andrew, for having me on again. I always love talking about what we're doing at Bad Bug and books that we're working on. It's always really exciting for us, and we appreciate really every supporter we get, just because that's validation for us that we're doing something right. So thank you for all that. Really appreciate everybody listening in and supporting us and following us as we progress.
Well, I don't think I can top that. So that's a wrap, everybody.